Hi, and welcome to the Flip the Switch podcast. This is Jesse Allen, Vice President of Marketing for LifeVantage. Today's podcast, it's a special episode actually, and it features LifeVantage CEO Darren Jensen and Senior Vice President of R&D Brian Dixon. The title of the podcast is Flip the Everything Switch, the Ultimate Guide on Protandim Tri-Synergizer. It's a great episode that I'm confident that you're going to enjoy. In the episode, Brian Dixon recaps and gives more insight into his research and the findings around the synergistic benefits of the Protandim family. Darren, who fancies himself a biohacker as well, talks a little bit about his supplement routine and how and where Tri-Synergizer fits into that routine so that he can optimize his health and continue to lead this company. So I'm sure you're going to enjoy it, and I'll turn it over to those two to run with the episode. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Hello, LifeVantage. This is Darren Jensen and
Brian Dixon.
Dr. Brian Dixon. You left out the doctor, man.
I'm a humble man.
Yeah. Dr. Brian Dixon, we're joining you live from our Studio B here at our global headquarters in Salt Lake City, Utah. And it's a bright, sunny February morning for it. Well, not morning anymore, February afternoon for us.
Beautiful day, a little chilly still, but
It
yeah,
is.
beautiful out.
I am looking forward to summer starting. I don't know about you, but kind of as we move into the spring season, it's wonderful. So
Yeah, I got a ski day or two left in me, but I'm looking forward to the warm for sure.
yeah, I think I'm ready for the beach.
It's almost bikini season, just
Well,
saying.
You don't want to see me in a bikini. But being down in Mexico with everyone, hopefully we saw many of you guys down in Mexico. That was a fun time. I really enjoyed that.
Wonderful. I saw everything.
Speaking of Mexico, and that's the reason why we're here today. You know, I was speaking with one of our leaders, I think it was Pro 4 or so, that was down in Mexico. And I mentioned to him the Tri-Synergizers packages that we have. And they looked at me with like a blank face, stunned expression, like, what do you mean Tri-Synergizer?
Baffling.
And
you came into my office yesterday and told me that story.
Yes.
Was my jaw on the ground or what?
It was. And I looked back at them with a stunned look on my face, like, what do you mean you don't know what Tri-Synergizer is? And I realized maybe we haven't done as good a job as we can talking about the power of our three Protandim products together. So I wanted to get Dr. Brian Dixon here with us and really just go through, a really good overview of what our Tri-Synergizer sachets or paquettes are, as well as the three Protandim products that are also the Tri-Synergizer. So probably the first thing that I'd start with is, Brian, you've been with the company now for how long?
Just about 8 months.
8 months. Boy, that went by so fast. 8 months.
I hit the ground at a full sprint
I know.
and haven't stopped running since.
You hit the ground and we put you right on stage. And you've been sprinting the whole time. But one of the projects that you were leading when you first came was really the rollout of our third Protandim product, which is the Protandim NAD Synergizer. So that became part of our Protandim NRF2, our Protandim NRF1, and then you have NAD, which is really a Tri-Synergizer, because they're synergizers. They're all part of the Protandim family. So why don't you tell us the importance of the Tri-Synergizer? I mean, we've had two of them together. We had the dual Synergizer, which was really these two, Nerf 1 and 2, and then we have the Tri. Kind of give us an idea of why these were bundled together and why we came out with it.
Well, I'll take a step back. And, the reason I ended up here is because the reputation of these two products, Protandim NRF1 Synergizer, Protandim NRF2 Synergizer, really preceded me, right? And was the whole reason that I'm here. I fell in love with the scientific story that LifeVantage was talking about. And then when I found out more that aging, cell signaling, nutrigenomics, biohacking, this is all the core of LifeVantage. Those are just things I'm incredibly passionate about.
And I think everybody out there is passionate about it too.
Absolutely.
I mean, we are the Protandim biohacking nutrigenomics company. Yeah, for sure.
So the reputation preceded even the product. So I was so pleasantly surprised to see what was in store. So I picked up Protandim NAD Synergizer partway through the development process. And I don't know if I just maybe wanted to see it for myself. I had heard about this turning on genes, all of this, reduction in oxidative stress. So maybe I just wanted to see it for myself. But one of the very bright scientists that works in the Department of Research and Development, Dr. Christina Beer, she says, let's go down, let's test this new product, Protandim NAD Synergizer. So we went down, met with a strategic partner, set up experimental protocol.
Let me just stop here, because really this is just a conversation between me and Dr. Dixon, and it's not even planned. But some people may ask, okay, well, how do you test the product? And I don't want to get in. Okay, keep it fourth grade level for me.
Mom friendly.
But how do we test it?
You're right. That's something you take for granted. I call it the curse of knowledge. You take for granted what you know, and you forget what others don't know. And it's easy. And it happens in the business as well, right? If we start using a lot of jargon, whether it's around direct selling, if it's around LifeVantage, we have to remember that not everyone has that same knowledge that you might have. And so it's important to meet people where they are. And that's something I take for granted is it turns out if you're a molecular biologist or a geneticist, it's very easy to test whether or not genes are turned on. Maybe it seems like science fiction to a lot of people, but it really is incredibly easy to do. And these experiments are very well worked out, very well accepted in the scientific community.
10 or 15 years ago, it was like magic, some of the stuff that we're doing today. I mean, we take it for granted, but before, just 10 or 20 years ago, this wouldn't even been heard of. Yeah, we can see what's turned on your genes. It's pretty incredible.
That's really funny. As being a molecular biologist, I spent most of my hours in the laboratory. We have this special tool in the lab that we use to transfer liquids between test tubes. We call it a pipette. So literally all day I'm moving clear liquids to clear liquids to clear liquids back and forth doing my experiment. And then it's not until the last step that you actually get to see the result that something happened. So it really is magic in a tube until you can actually visualize it. So 15 years ago, we've come so far in these technologies. It's amazing. So it turns out it's very easy to test these genes in a laboratory setting. Okay. And so what we simply did was we took some human cells, put them in culture, and then expose these cells to the individual products one at a time. So Protandim NRF1 Synergizer, Protandim NRF2 Synergizer, and Protandim NAD Synergizer. And then, this can be the benefit of fresh eyes coming in as well. Some of the ingredients, as I was looking at the labels and getting comfortable with the product lines, and drawing back on especially my graduate work, I realized that at least one of those ingredients, the wasabi that's in Protandim NAD Synergizer, is also a very well-known NRF2 inducer or activator. So I started wondering, I wonder if we're going to get kind of some maybe additive effects by utilizing them together at once. So in our fourth treatment, we used the combination of the three together. And long story, a bunch of work, a few of your dollars later, we were able to get these amazing results. And
they took us by surprise. It wasn't something, it was the idea you had of, let's just test them all together and see what the effect is. Because I know that when we were introducing this, the results came out a couple of days before we launched it. And we were scrambling to just digest what had just happened, because it really changed our view of the product line very quickly and caused us to pivot into a different direction.
That's right, because you and I were in Japan together, and I was on the plane back from Japan, had just gotten the results, so spent my flight back crunching data, getting ready to head to Long Beach. And the results were amazing, and not just additive effect, but we saw absolute synergistic effect. So literally 1 + 1 wasn't equaling 2, it wasn't equaling 3. It was equaling like 10 and above. Some of our genes, the synergy was more than 1,800% further induction of some of these genes that we were looking at. So just the power of this combination, I think, became really clear to us. And so we wanted to leverage that scientific data and then also the opportunity to bundle these products together.
So let's talk about bundling the products together. So first, you talked about some of the data that we saw, and I remember there were two events, kind of back to back. Dr. Dixon and I were in Japan, And then we had to fly directly back to the United States to Long Beach. So there was very little time in between. As you're saying, on the plane, you're crunching the data coming back. That's how close it was to this event. And you mentioned, I know you've got some information up here with a couple of charts. I don't know if you wanted
want me
to
to
show.
show?
Yeah, show those charts. Those are
For the audience, but what we did was looked at a couple of genes known to be regulated
Maybe
by
lift
each
it
of
up above the
the
bottles.
each of the pathways, and we'll make sure we get this posted either in the comments below or actually right in the video. But we know what genes are regulated by what pathways, and so we can look at those genes, and like I mentioned, for a molecular biologist at least, it's very easy to look at gene induction. So we can look at what we call these quintessential or genes known to be regulated by these pathways, and we can see how they're upregulated. And so in this case for Protandim NRF1 Synergizer and the NRF1 pathway, we can see alone it has a 61% increase, but then in combination it increases to 84% or a further 39% increase. Here for a gene called PGC1 alpha, 69% increase, but then an increase up to 118% or a 71% further increase. So literally you can see how 1 + 1 is really equaling 3 or more. Just to quickly run through the genes, looking at NRF2 pathways. Again, the names aren't so important, but a 40% induction by itself, up to a 73% induction, or a further 82% increase. And here's one of those massive inductions, or that synergistic effect that we saw. So a 50% increase with Protandim NRF2 Synergizer alone, and then over 1,500% further increase with these genes. And then lastly, with some genes related to NAD and NAD biosynthesis, we won't get into all of that nitty-gritty complicated details, but a modest increase at 12 and 11% for these two genes. But look at when we put them in combination, almost 1,000% increase, and like I said, an almost 2,000% further induction by utilizing this combination that we're now calling the Tri-Synergizer together.
That's pretty incredible. So let me get into some of the basics. So, all right. So when it comes to the products, if you purchase any of them individually, they are in the United States, they're $59.99. Okay, so basically $59.99 individually. You purchase them all together, and first, not even purchase them all together. If you one time purchase them. If I put them on a subscription, which is a subscription order, the price drops from $59.99 down to $49.99. So a $10 savings. So that's incredible. Now,
and subscription is a great service that we provide, right? We know that people are going to experience health benefits when they get on this product. And so we're trying to just ingrain that habituation into people. So we want to make it as easy for people to get these products every single month so they keep taking them so that they can feel their best self.
I agree.
I love that we have a subscription program here.
So then instead of buying them individually, because we wanted to have the power of, I'll move this over here so people can see. We wanted to show the power of taking all three of these together. So instead of offering them at $59.99 individually, if you buy all three at once, the price of it drops down to $150.99. So if you bought them individually, it's like $179. Now you buy all three together, it takes about $30 off the price or so. Now, if you put that on a subscription order, the price even goes down dramatically, more down to $125.99. So that is incredible when it comes to savings. So obviously, that's the way to do it. If you want to buy all three of these together, you get it on the subscription, all three of them together, and free shipping. So if you buy anything on the subscription order, it's all free shipping.
How cool is that?
Yeah, I know, that's great. And Brady, what is it if we buy them if it's a one-time order and you don't have a subscription? Isn't like the limit like $100? You got to be over 100 or something like that. Don't quote me on that, but that's what I think that it is. Okay. Now, a couple of practical questions before we move on to why we bundle them together. Now, I think if somebody were to look for a person that's a super user of supplements, I'd classify myself as a super user. I'm sure you're probably a super user. Well. So I take a lot of them. I take all of ours. Actually, I take more than, I won't get into how I use them, but I take more than what's recommended. And I use all of our products. And then I also have some other supplements. I take a multivitamin and mineral. I've got some vitamin D. I take, I go to the gym with my kids, so I'm taking some creatine. I'm taking some other things. So I have a handful of supplements. Once you add on your probios and your omega-3s, I think I've got 20 some odd tablets and pills there. Now, I generally get up each morning, I put them in my pocket, and I take them at lunch because I don't like taking a multivitamin mineral on an empty stomach. Sometimes I'm a little more sensitive to that. I like to have something in my stomach. And so I'll either eat a little bit at work, I get something, I eat a little bit and then I'll take them, or I wait till lunchtime and then I take the product. Is that a problem if I take them kind of all together with a variety of products, with a variety of supplements?
It's a great question. And may there be some tiny little nuance? Mm-hmm. Maybe. But I put a tiny little maybe in there. When we start looking at the mechanisms of how a lot of these different things are working, let's take the NRF2 pathway, for example. Here, make a fist for me, if you would. Fist. So normally what's happening is NRF2 is anchored to a protein on the cell membrane. Mm-hmm. And there's this very unique chemical bond that keeps those two anchored together. So what happens is an oxidant or a free radical is going to come in and literally chemically change that bond to release it. So it can be a free radical, an oxidant, a toxin, for example, as well, can also liberate that bond. And so now you've liberated NRF2 from that anchor, and it can go into the nucleus and do the job that it needs to do by flipping those switches on those antioxidant and detoxification genes. So the reason I don't have those concerns about taking them all together is it's that specific interaction of that bond that needs to happen. And so any sort of interference is either not going to break that bond, right? Mm-hmm. So because it's such a special interaction, it's unlikely that other nutrients are going to get in the way of that actual cleavage happening. And mechanistically, a lot of those other nutrients are working in very different ways than what we're trying to do, in this case specifically with Protandim NRF2 Synergizer. So I don't have any concerns from a mechanistic, scientific explanation. I'm impressed your tummy can handle all of those supplements.
Sometimes it's like a small meal.
But what I guess the ultimate point that I want to make is stop overcomplicating everything. I think the more we think about things, we can end up paralyzing ourselves, and we end up doing nothing as a result. The most important thing to do is to take the supplements in the first place. The other thing I would encourage people to do is kind of do a little self-experiment, some introspection with yourself, and how are you feeling taking your supplements and at what time of day. I'm also the same. I have to take my supplements on a full stomach. We recommend that people take the Synergizer just very simply, very clean at breakfast. Okay, so take your supplements with breakfast. I personally prefer to take my supplements at lunch.
Me too. Yeah.
So that's when I'm taking my supplements. My wife, she loves to take them right before she goes to bed. How she can do that, I have no idea, but I've never met anyone who can sleep like she can. So there's 3 different people, 3 different scenarios. Just do what works best for you and do what's going to make it so you'll remember to take the product. And start to use these physical or physiological cues. So I know when I eat lunch, it's supplement time, right? If you're eating breakfast, if you're a big breakfast eater, that should be your cue. It's supplement time. Bedtime, maybe you leave them by your sink at night, maybe you leave them on your nightstand when you go to turn out the night. What's the cue that's going to cue you to remember to take your products? That's the most important thing. And then be introspective again and just what's working best for you, and you ultimately feeling energized and ready to tackle the world every day.
Yeah, I know with me, I went out onto Amazon and there's a whole variety of like pill cases or supplement cases you can get. So I got some that are marked by day so I can make sure that I'm taking them. But I keep them right by my sink at night. So at night I'm looking at them, in the morning I'm looking at them, so that I'm automatically popping one of those open. I put the tablets in my pocket. It's just part of my morning routine. And then I always have those in my pocket because I'm always reaching in, grabbing my phone or grabbing something else out, and it reminds me it's lunchtime. I know I need to take them.
Perfect.
So let's talk about another thing that I personally have seen. For me, I generally don't drink a lot of caffeine. But when I do, I feel caffeine more just regularly. I seem to be a little more sensitive to it. And I'm sure that there are people that are sensitive to it, whether genetically or just your own.
You're saying when you take the Synergize?
No. I'm just saying when I just take it normally.
Just
I'm a little,
okay.
Caffeine in general. I'm a little more sensitive to it. So I've been paying more attention to it, especially since I'm taking it during lunch. And so sometimes if I mix lunch with, let's say I take in a Diet Coke or Coke Zero, or I know I shouldn't be, but when I do, I feel it more. It's like I feel a little more jittery than normal when I'm on those. Is there something related to maybe the Synergize or the NAD or something that makes me more sensitive, or that would augment the kind of the effects of caffeine or something?
Yeah, I'm a little bit sensitive to caffeine myself. For example, I have a hard cutoff in the afternoon at 3 o'clock. I won't touch any sort of stimulant or caffeine after 3 o'clock because I know it's going to disrupt my sleep. So that's something I've incorporated personally. One of the ingredients in Protandim NAD Synergizer is a compound that, at least molecularly, is structurally very similar to caffeine.
Now, is that the teacrine?
That's the teacrine that's in the Protandim NAD Synergizer. Probably don't have time to get into it today, but some very interesting studies on how that molecule was discovered and initially studied and ultimately brought into the nutritional space. But a very interesting compound with a lot of very interesting effects. There's been a fair amount of molecular biology done on that compound, and what they've found is teacrine does actually bind the same receptors that caffeine is binding.
So what does that mean?
So you can almost think of this as a pool. So you can think of, you have a pool, and there's other things besides caffeine and teacrine that also bind these receptors. So you can think of, you have this big pool of stuff that has the ability to act nutrigenomically to have an effect, okay? So if you remember how we talk about nutrigenomics, you have a nutrient that binds a receptor that activates cell signaling to flip the switches on these genes. Well, what happens is this pool of molecules that's floating around, an analogy I like to think about is one of a big parking lot. So maybe think, I made the mistake of going to the shopping mall around the holidays. I'll never do it.
I go to the
I'll never
shopping
do it
mall.
again.
It's right on my phone. But anyway.
Well, I've got a 13-year-old daughter
Yeah,
who
okay.
I had to drop off there.
Point taken. Yeah.
But to pull into this mall parking lot was absolutely insane. And I just had to sit there along with all of these other cars waiting to pull into a parking spot, right? All of the parking spots were full at the shopping mall. So this is really pretty analogous to what's going on with this pool of molecules that can build up in our body. So the pool would be like all of us that were waiting to find a parking spot. The parking spots with the cars in them are like these nutrients binding to those receptors. Eventually a car will back out and a spot opens up, and one of those cars that's waiting in that pool can pull in. So my point ultimately is that as we have a number of these molecules that can bind to the same thing, the concentrations can rise, and so it can prolong the effects that maybe caffeine might be having. It might even exacerbate the effects. So if there are some open parking spots, you're making it so you've got more things binding into these receptors. And my best advice is just to really be cognizant, which you should be doing anyway with everything you're putting in your mouth. Just be cognizant of what is your total caffeine intake? When are you taking your supplements? And the best advice would just to be to separate these out in space and time.
So don't down 6 Red Bulls and then power down an extra big.
Shouldn't be
shouldn't be doing
those
that at all.
energy
But
drinks
definitely.
But yeah,
Okay.
you'd obviously expect there to be an exacerbation going on there.
So there might be some augmentation or
Exactly.
something that's going on. If you're feeling that, just pay more attention to, especially if it's just a sensitivity that you might have and you're aware of, pay more attention to it, put more space in between them.
Yeah, and
you
that
should
just
be
comes
good.
back to that introspection.
Yeah.
You know, everything we're putting in our body should make us feel alive, ready to tackle the day. So if you're not feeling that, then we need to adjust something in our diets. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, we talked about the products individually. So after we got to Long Beach and we realized that these all worked synergistically, we thought, all right, we need to kind of pivot our thinking because, it's great to have the products individually in bottles, but we also like to have simplicity. So we came out with the Protandim Synergizer. And I don't know if you can see it here, but along the side, it lists out the number of days. So we've got a 30-day supply. And what I really like about it is you can access it from the bottom and you pull it out and you've got the little sachets here, or the paquettes, with the individual, all three of these products individually inside. So it's really convenient. And I like it from the standpoint of sampling. A lot of people, as I talk about the company and what we do, they say, wow, that's really cool information. And I normally have these when I'm traveling, so I'm like, oh, well, here's a little sample. And typically we have these little cards that you can hand out with it that have a lot of the supplement fact information with it. I pass those out to people, and it's an incredible sampling tool for me. And typically, there's this, I don't know if it's not an experiential effect, but it's, normally when I got the NAD in it, I feel it. What do we call that?
Sensorial.
A
effect.
sensorial, that sounds very smart. A sensorial effect to it. And people are like, wow, I really liked it. So I think these are an incredible tool for each of you to use. And we just launched this Synergizer box, or what do we call it? The paquettes, or the
Synergizer.
The Synergizer, and it's in paquettes. We just launched these in the middle of January, so these are new. Let me give you the pricing for it. So again, remember, each of these individually, if you bought them just one time, is $59.99. But if you buy them on a subscription, then all three of them drop down to $49.99, right?
Yep.
Correct me if I misquote these. And then if you buy them together in a bundle, one time, it is $150.99. But if I buy the three of them together in subscription, it's $125.99. So an incredible price savings there. And with any type of subscription, it's free shipping. So bam, that's a great price. Let's see, 125, 126 divided by 3. What is that? 40, 120. So about $42 each. I mean, that's a great price. Yeah, I mean, that's a huge savings. Now we came out with the Synergizer pack. You buy it one time, so not on a subscription. One time it's $154. And if you buy it on a subscription, so all three of them together, $127.99. So not only is it very convenient for you to take, and you can set these up, right by your sink in the morning, or whatever your morning routine is. Toss one of these in your pocket or take it right there, and it's all of your products together. So buy these together on a subscription, $127.99, and it's a great way to sample the product to other people.
Yeah, I just like to piggyback, and I think it was a number of the distributors, once they saw that data, they had the suggestion, hey, is there any way that we could get them into a single sachet? And we said, well, absolutely, we'll look into it. So we were able to make that happen in very short order.
Yeah,
and
Skilled Advisory Board. Yeah.
And I really hope, friends come over to my house, they always want to know, hey, what do you do? And all I do is I say, hey, I make these, and just give them, 3 to 5, send them on their way.
You give random pills to people who come in? No,
just give pill pusher for sure.
That's better than giving them random pulls.
It's a great way. Yep. I don't have to say anything. I say, here's what I do. I make these great products. And then what happens more times than not is they're coming back to me and they're saying, hey, is there any way I can get more of that stuff, Mm-hmm. So this is a great way, not just for convenience for the individual. We really hope that people are going to put numerous Synergizer packets on their subscription orders, mm-hmm. and use them to really advertise for themselves, their business, and the wonderful products that we make here at LifeVantage.
I agree. And probably one final thing that I'd like to talk about now, patent-wise. I know that we've applied for a patent for the Synergizer. Do you want to just bring us up to speed so that we all understand? Because I want to make sure that everybody has the right information. So where do we stand? Tell us about the patent. Where do we stand?
Oh yeah, the patent.
Yeah, the patent.
So this is officially U.S. patent pending. So okay. How cool is that? Let's first talk about the importance of patents to you all. if we have something that's patented, that's something that you can talk about that nobody in this nutritional space can. Okay, so we literally tie up the competition and keep the marketplace as clean as possible, so that all we're asking you to do is go out and talk about the products.
So no competition.
Literally, what we've
No
done
competition.
is locked up the combination of these three products together, and importantly, these nutrients working together in this synergistic effect. And I have to say, it was an amazing experience to work with the legal team that we have here. Just some incredibly bright attorneys that we have on staff. They covered every angle, crossed every T, dotted every I. This patent ended up being, somewhere around 80 pages long. It is unbelievably comprehensive.
And that's important because you don't want people trying to find ways of getting around patents. So I'm glad that it was 80 pages long.
That's exactly right, because people they'll start to probe and look for the weak spots in patents and ways that they can get around them. So we were just thinking about every way that somebody might be able to infringe on this amazing discovery that we've been able to make, and just have this amazing patent protection that we've applied for.
So we've applied for it. Now it goes into it's patent pending at that time. And typically, if I remember other patents that I've worked on, it's at least about 18 months before they're issued.
That's exactly right, and that's the counsel that we've received.
Okay.
Is expect around 18 months from that date of submission. But I have to say, in working with some of the attorneys as well, when we showed them the data, they were like, "Oh my gosh, this is real. This is cool. I've never seen anything like this in the industry. I can't imagine that this will not be ultimately executed."
Yeah. So patent pending. Hopefully we'll get final notification on it within the next, a year and a half or so. And, it's the government. It's whatever speed the government moves at. Slow, generally, I think. Anyway, am I speaking out my internal monologue?
I heard it.
Yeah. But anyway, it is in the process. So, well, Dr. Dixon, I'm trying to think of anything that we haven't covered, because I know that everybody's listening thinking, okay, I'm trying to anticipate some general questions. Talked about how to use it, the pricing behind it, why we came out with it. One, we wanted to let you know that we do have it, so that I don't get any more of those questions or blank stares about try Synergize. I haven't heard about that one. Anything that you can think that we've forgotten about?
I would just say, I know people love Protandim NRF2 Synergizer. I know a lot of people are also using Protandim NRF1 and NRF2 Synergizers together. What I would say is, if you love these products individually, if you love them in the duo pack, our data shows that if you want to maximize the benefits of these individually or together in their bundle, utilize the three together to maximize the effect. So if you haven't tried the Try Synergizer yet, we recommend you give it a go. See how you feel on it. See if you don't just
that
wake up ready,
effect. Yeah.
ready to tackle the world with that sensorial effect. So that would be my challenge. If you haven't tried it, give it a go.
In my personal experience with it, by using all three of them together, for me, part of it is my wife is really noticing it, because I just don't sleep as long. I feel energized, more energetic. I feel more clear. I don't have that brain fog going on, and it's actually quite annoying on occasion, especially when it's the weekend. I'm looking forward to sleeping in a little bit, and 5 a.m., 6 a.m. comes, and my eyes are just wide open, and I'm like, I don't need any more sleep. It's probably time to get up, and I kind of like sleeping in till at least 7 or something on a Saturday.
It's a mental thing. I've experienced the exact same thing. I was up at 4 a.m. this morning.
Not up that
and
early.
I love it.
Yeah.
At first I was annoyed, but I flipped my mindset. Instead of thinking I'm not sleeping long enough, I mean, here we are where we should be experiencing the lull of our day. A lot of people hit that 2 p.m., 3 p.m. crash. I'm up at 4. I feel perfectly fine. I don't feel like I need to lay down and take a nap. So I've really changed my mindset and have learned to love and embrace that side effect, if you will, because I get a couple hours back in my day, and to be able to wake up before the wife and kids, I'm able to get so much done. So I love it.
Yeah, so I failed to mention that I go to bed at 1 a.m. And so I get up at, so getting up at 6 or so. I mean, I've just been running on less sleep. I'm not recommending that. I'm just saying that's been my experience. But I feel like I'm clear. My brain processes are working good. I just feel focused. So really been enjoying it together. Well, Dr. Dixon, thank you for spending some time with me today, and thank you guys.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for spending some time with us and really just kind of getting into a conversation that we have here. I mean, this basically you're just joining us for a conversation. I hope it was informative and that you feel more like you're an expert on the new Synergize. Thank you.
Give it a go, everybody. Let us know what you think.
Yep. See you later.
Thanks for listening to Flip the Switch, a podcast by LifeVantage. The views expressed in this podcast are those of the authors and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of LifeVantage or any other agency, organization, employer, or company. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products were not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. The employee product experiences shared in this podcast are unique to the individual sharing his or her experiences and are not a guarantee that any consumer will experience the same product results or benefits. If you have any questions about whether or not any LifeVantage product is a product you can take, consult with your healthcare provider.